On the eve of the second impeachment trial of Donald J. Trump, the idea that Trump's lawyers are offering is that he just, quote, exercised his First Amendment right under the Constitution to express his belief that the election results were suspect. It's an exceedingly weak defense. You don't really need 144 constitutional lawyers to tell you that. But just in case, 144 constitutional lawyers did just sign a letter saying, quote, any First Amendment defense raised by President Trump's attorneys would be legally frivolous. In other words, we all agree First Amendment does not prevent the Senate from convicting President Trump and disqualifying him from holding future office. One of the lawyers who signed that letter is Floyd Abrams, arguably the preeminent First Amendment attorney in the country. He represented the New York Times during the Pentagon Papers case, 2 reporters who were jailed for not revealing their sources, and Citizens United. Remember, that was a First Amendment case in that landmark campaign finance case. He's the author of The Soul of the First Amendment, among other books, and Floyd Abrams joins me now. It's great to have you on, Mr. Abrams. Why did you feel motivated to write this letter?
Well, I don't usually write letters saying the First Amendment does not apply. This was a situation in which I and all these other professors and scholars thought that it was, the word we chose, frivolous, to maintain that the First Amendment protected President Trump with respect to his impeachment at all, and with respect to the facts of this case.
The letter reads that the First Amendment doesn't apply in impeachment proceedings, so it cannot provide a defense for President Trump. Why does it not apply in impeachment proceedings?
It doesn't apply because there are lots of things that a president or any of us can do that are protected by the First Amendment that could still lead to impeachment. I mean, suppose the president ran around burning an American flag saying, I have no intention of protecting the people of the United States. He took an oath to preserve and protect and defend the Constitution. If he starts saying, I won't do it, if he starts saying, I'm not loyal, to pick that example, of course he could be impeached.
You also say that his speech and conduct around January 6th constitute unprotected incitement. And this, to me, is an even deeper level of analysis. I mean, I think the first point about the First Amendment not applying really does make a lot of sense. My favorite example is the president went around inviting China to invade, right? If the president was constantly like, I think we would be better off if China just invaded and occupied us. Like, you probably want to do something about that.
You should do that.
Right, you should do that.
It should be protected.
Which, again, if someone wrote that, right, if someone wrote that and the state tried to sanction them, you as their lawyer would rightly say that's outrageous. This is First Amendment protected speech. But a president saying it's another thing. But then the idea of incitement, which seems to me dicier ground, First Amendment-wise, and you make this argument in the letter, the president's speech and conduct around January 6th constitute unprotected incitement. What do you mean by that?
I mean that when the president started out for some time falsely saying that the election had been stolen, tells people to go to Washington and tells them it'll be wild when they get there, gives a speech to them, leading them to go to the Capitol, telling them to go to the Capitol, telling them they have to be strong and not weak, telling them they will lose the country. The country will be lost to them unless they win this. When you add all the different things up he said in the context in which he said it, he was inciting them not only to go, but to do something. And the only thing that they could do in that circumstance that would fit what he was saying was the sort of violence that we saw.
It's fair. I feel like incitement is it can be a difficult category, and the First Amendment's protections are really important in terms of this. But it is striking to me that you think that this really does fit the bill, that the pattern of behavior, the actual speech and what happened culminate into something that fits in a pretty small target, I would imagine you see.
Absolutely. Look, it's all of us, 144 people. We all love the First Amendment. We all write articles generally saying it ought to be expanded, it ought to be taken more seriously. But in a situation in which the totality of what Donald Trump did, the totality of what he said amounted to a cry for them to take action, not just have views. and not just attend, not just go to the Capitol, but to be strong and to do this and to do that. And you're going to lose your country unless you what? I think the what is very logically the violence that we saw.
Floyd Abrams, a real legendary advocate for the First Amendment, and a great pleasure to have you on, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. It's good to see you.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.